How's it going, everyone? My name is True Underdog, and today we'll be discussing the patch notes for Kotal Kahn. The changes this character got were very interesting because he got mostly buffs, but even so, the Kotal Kahn fans aren't very excited about them. So let's have a look at these changes and see if we can figure out why fans are a bit disappointed. So to begin, Kotal Kahn now has more health, 1100 instead of 1000, so slightly more health than the average character. Not a huge change, but does go a long way for big body characters like Kotal Kahn, because it's much harder for him to avoid things like projectiles and just zoning in general, so having a little bit more health does help quite a bit. And his parry is also faster now as well, starting up in 10 frames instead of 14, which is very nice, though it is still on the slow side in terms of parries, and since this parry doesn't actually attack, I do think it could stand to be a little bit faster, similar to Katana's buff, which is now much faster, almost twice as fast as this parry in fact. So I do think Kotal Kahn's parry could be a little bit faster, but it's still nice they sped it up a little bit. And this move also recovers 1 frame faster as well, which is good because once you absorb an attack, you can now recover 1 frame faster and punish a little bit sooner, which is all very good. And best of all, this parry now acts like a flawless block. So if you do manage to interrupt the opponent's string or their special move, it's now treated as a flawless block, which is a very big deal in theory because that can make moves that are normally safe on block fully punishable on block. The issue is this move still doesn't start up very quickly, so while it does sound a lot stronger in theory, it's not going to be quite as good as a flawless block because a flawless block can work on anywhere there's a gap. But the Kotal parry requires a gap of at least 10 frames to be effective. And next up, his Tequani Maul, or his Panther attack, also got much faster. So on startup, it's 2 frames faster now, 17 instead of 19. Not a very big change there. However, on block, it also recovers 16 frames faster. So if the opponent does block this move, it's now a bit tougher to punish. Very nice stuff. And on miss, it recovers 33 frames faster. So that's pretty much half a second. This game runs at 60 frames per second, and this move recovers 33 frames faster. That's over half a second. However, this move does travel full screen, so the only way it's ever going to miss is if Devora jumps, so let me go ahead and do that real quick. And now we can actually see it miss maybe. Oh, it's so tough. Oh, it hits out of the air too. How do I make this move miss? Okay, so it recovers half a second faster, but as you can see, I travel so far, I'm not even sure if that change was actually necessary because I cover so much distance. Unless you can teleport, you're not really going to punish me. Now Devora could, and so can Scorpion, so those characters can still punish it even with that recovery change, but I do think it's nice this move got faster overall. And perhaps the most important change of all, this move recovers 13 frames faster on hit. So let's see what the hit advantage is on this thing. 25, wow, so I can just go in with this. That's crazy. So if you learn the timing of exactly when you recover, you can now pressure with this mid. That's crazy. He seems to recover the second he transforms back. Let's see. Yeah, that's awesome. You now have actual Oki after this move. That's very nice. I think that's possibly the most important change of all. It's better on block, that's a very good change. However, how good it is on hit is the biggest change because now you actually have Oki as Kotal Kahn. You can now pressure with this mid and possibly even this high attack as well if the opponent stand blocks. So I think the hit advantage is possibly the best change about this move. And the amplified version also got better as well. It recovers faster on block as well, and it's now -8. So that's very tough to punish for a lot of characters. You gotta be nearly frame perfect. Now a lot of characters do have a 7 frame startup, but characters like Kotal Kahn, my fastest standing attack is actually 8 frames. So if I don't punish you exactly that frame you hit me, then I can't even punish you. And I could down 1, but down 1's not a very crazy punish. So that's awesome because for anyone who's not aware, this move goes through projectiles when you amplify it. So now, even if you don't punish the projectile on time, the opponent can't even punish you depending on who they're using. The most they can actually do is down 1 in theory. But even then, they need frame perfect timing, so that's actually a very big buff. And then the rest of the changes are pretty much the same as the regular version. It recovers 33 frames faster on whip, and it also has more hit advantage. So it recovers 13 frames faster. Let's see the hit advantage. So it's 25. Alright, so more or less the same. Still very good, and also it had a visual effect change. So that big cloud of smoke is now there. Normally it's yellow. Now it's orange when you amplify it. So instead of just glowing, there's a bigger visual cue that the opponent has spent the bar. If you're fighting Kotal Kahn, you know if he enhanced it because you see that smoke. Now on hit, it's not that much better, but on block, this move did get a lot better, which is awesome because it's a great counter zoning tool. And now, even if the opponent throws their projectile and still has time to block, you're not very punishable. So that's a very good change. And we're still not done. The air version actually got better as well. So it starts up in 14 frames, and it was 13, so that's actually a slight nerf, but pretty much everything else is a buff. So it recovers 3 frames faster on block or miss, and has 5 more frames of block stun with increased pushback. So let's go ahead and see that, because the biggest change is how it is on block. So let's see. Minus 15, okay, so still punishable. It says more pushback. I don't really see that much pushback at all. There's pretty much none. I'm right in the opponent's face. If they don't know about frame data, I could throw them if they're just still blocking. I'm so close. I don't see a very big change there, but the point is it's a bit better on block and miss. So that's very nice. What's the frame data when it misses? Kind of wish it would just tell you. So when it misses, it's got 40 frames of recovery, so still very long, but 3 frames faster. And on block, it's harder to punish too. It's minus 17, so definitely still punishable, but not as easy as it was before, so maybe certain special moves don't connect now. You have to actually use your normals and have timing, instead of buffering that special move for a reversal, so that's a somewhat nice change, and the amplified version also got better as well. So it starts up 1 frame slower, but recovers 8 frames faster on block and miss, and has 5 more frames of block stun with increased pushback. But is it safe though? Let's see. Minus 11, so still punishable, still fully punishable. Increased pushback, I think they mean decreased pushback, because there's no pushback whatsoever from what I can see. So it's still punishable, to be sure, but if you spin the bar, it's a little bit better, and keep in mind, amplifying this move does make it immune to projectiles, and that also does apply to the air version. So it's still a very good move for countering zoning, and that's very interesting. The ground version still seems better though, in nearly every way. Although I can still see the benefit to doing the air version without spending meter, but I'm not sure why you'd want to spend the meter most of the time if you're in the air. The ground version makes perfect sense, beats projectiles, does more damage, better on block, but the air version still leaves something to be desired. Still not a very good move most of the time. And these next changes mostly apply to his combo string. So first up we have Metakizea, I can't say it, it's back 2-2-3. So this final part is actually treated as airborne now, and it is interruptible. However, now if you hit Kotal Kahn during the animation, it's a full juggle state, and Kotal Kahn himself is now treated as airborne. And his jumping attacks also had their cancel frames adjusted, so that means it's now easier to cancel into his Tequani Mao or any other air attack that he has. But in his tournament builds, I don't think he has any other air special moves. The point is it's now a bit easier to special cancel these moves into his special attack, which is mostly if you hit the opponent. If they're blocking, you don't really want to do that, but if you hit them, you get some pretty good damage and a side switch, and now it's much easier to do. I like that change a lot. I wish more characters had this, because for certain characters like Katana, it can still be very awkward to get her air cancels. Kotal Kahn's down 3 is also better now as well. It starts up in 8 frames instead of 9, so 1 frame faster. Very good for a downward poke, recovers 3 frames faster, that's good, and has 4 more frames of hit stun. So look at that, we're now at plus 13 on hit, which means you have to deal with what I do next. And I believe the best move is that, his forward 1-2, because if you do land a crouching attack, this follow-up jails and they have to block it no matter what. So that's going to be what you actually want to do, but the good news is his down 3 is actually more useful. Awesome, because the range on it actually isn't half bad. So making it a little bit better with the frames is a very good decision. And last but not least, his down 4 is also better now as well. It has 1 more frame of hit stun, so now it's plus 16 on hit. Very good stuff. Alright, so Kotal Kahn did get mostly buffs, aside from this one, which is theoretically a pretty big nerf. But the issue a lot of Kotal Kahn mains have is that Variation 2 was never the preferred build. Making it better is very nice, but since it was never the preferred build, a lot of Kotal Kahn mains are considerably upset because this one doesn't have any combos really. Variation 1 has the combos and it didn't get any better. So in other words, Kotal Kahn was never very good, but his best build that everyone preferred didn't get any changes whatsoever, aside from the universal changes like his parry. That affects both builds, obviously, but for the most part these changes benefited his Variation 2, which was never more desirable. And I understand that by buffing this variation, NetherRealm did want to make it more desirable, and that's a very nice thing to do, but at the same time, Variation 1 was preferred and it didn't get any better, and so Variation 2 is now equal, and that's not really a buff because Kotal Kahn was never considered that good, so the best way to make him a little bit stronger in terms of tier was to make Variation 1 better as well, and that just didn't happen. And I think that's why a lot of Kotal Kahn mains are a little bit sad and disappointed. I think they were hoping Kotal Kahn would get a lot more universal changes, because the main issue a lot of players have is that his universal stuff is just too slow. This move starts up in 22 frames. Now it has fantastic range to be sure, but that's his only mid that actually combos. He He has a low attack, is it this? And that's faster, 17 frames, but that's still very, very slow. He has this move, which is a little bit faster, 17 as well, but they're just so slow. Kotal Kahn is just considered very, very slow, and I think that's what most people had an issue with, and they didn't really speed up his strings for the most part. They gave him some better hit advantage on his pokes, and that's very, very nice, but they didn't really address all the concerns that players actually had, which was mainly his speed on his key strings that actually combo. One of his best strings is still this, in terms of how comboable it is, because even in this build you can actually combo after it, as you saw right there, but the problem is the first 2 hits are very unsafe on block, and if you commit, the opponent can interrupt that 3rd hit, which is very bad, because now it's a full combo. So in one way, Kotal Kahn got worse universally. I do like his parry being a little bit better, though I'll have to experiment if that can actually be used mid-string or in the middle of special moves as they amplify. It may not be fast enough, but if so, that's a pretty nice buff. But I think the main issue most players had is that Variation 1 didn't get better, and more importantly, his universal strings didn't get faster. So even though Kotal Kahn did get a lot of buffs in this update, it wasn't the buffs that the fans really wanted. But please let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. And then while you're down there, go ahead and leave a like if you enjoyed the video. It really does help my channel out a ton. And finally, why not keep that combo going by subscribing and ringing that bell? That way you never miss a future video. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.